Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content I've been putting up, be sure to subscribe so you always know when a new video pops up. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get into the video. Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. This time, we're covering the second part of the Dark Knight storyline. After the Fight Club-esque incident with Frey and your darker half, Lord Drillmon and the others decide to put the incident behind them since you've done so much for them that you deserve the right to act a little crazy sometimes. One of the Temple Knights decides to dive straight back into his old ways and asks you to come and help him and some allies with yet another problem. However, this knight uses your overly agreeable nature to lead you into an ambush because despite what some of the others think of your good deeds, to some, you're just a heretic who attacked the Holy Knights. Him and two of his friends try to kill you because despite knowing what you can do, they think they're good enough to take you down. After you kill two of them, the last one still threatens you, which, while some people may call that brave, is just dumb. He doesn't even change his tune when the most menacing looking Eorzea I've ever seen walks up. Because you're kinda dumb yourself, you let the knight run off instead of burying him in the snow like he wanted to do to you. The Eorzea, a dark knight named Sedergu, questions your intelligence since you followed some men who wanted to kill you, then acted surprised when they tried to do it. Something he knows that you didn't learn from Frey. The man was his friend, and he had thought Frey had died until he heard about someone using his sword in battle, so he came to investigate to find out what really happened to his friend and how you learned to fight like him. When you tell him the story, he's not as surprised as you would expect. Apparently, it's not the first time someone channeled a dead Dark Knight who trained them and tried to steal their body. Cid and Frey had trained together, and the man had been incredibly powerful, but that hadn't saved him in the end. He is glad to see that you are carrying on his legacy, and the fact that you learned so much with only his soul crystal to guide you is a testament to how powerful you could become. He has something that he wants to talk to you about later, so he tells you to meet him at the Forgotten Knight in Ishgard. The first thing he tells you is the fact that he met you while you were doing something stupid proves that you have no idea what it means to be a Dark Knight. The very first Dark Knight faced off against the clergy because he didn't agree with their unjust actions, and he sacrificed his home, family, and his friends to fight for what he believed was right. And that is what all Dark Knights must do. The common people may hate you, and others may call you a criminal, but it doesn't matter. Even when they hate you or try to kill you, Dark Knights do what's right no matter what. If you're not ready to do that, then Cid wants you to give him your sword and soul crystal and pick up another job like a botanist or something. The Warrior of Light's sword was expensive, so there was no way she would hand it over, and she claims that she's more than willing to do what's necessary to bring about justice. However, her actions have proved otherwise. Cid puts a sword on the table and lets you know that he fixed your mistake of letting the man live who tried to kill you. Mercy is something that is seldom repaid with kindness. The first Ishgardians who met Eorzea thought they were Dravanians. Cid and the others had escaped from the Garlean armies only to be attacked by another nation because they mistook them for dragons. However, the Eorzea could fight, and they fended off the Ishgardians, but instead of killing them all, they let them live. Instead of being grateful for the mercy they were showed, the Ishgardians got reinforcements and came back and began murdering every man, woman, and child they could find. He told you this so you could understand that you have to do what needs to be done because he needs your help with something. When Cid's master died, he told him and Frey a riddle about harnessing the abyss. They didn't understand what he meant, and they had hoped they would learn the meaning as they grew as Dark Knights, so they continued to fight against all forms of injustice until they came across the Ellison girl who you should have seen standing beside him. Her name is Riel. She was running from a group of Temple Knights who were trying to kill her when Cid and Frey saw her and stepped in. They went into hiding together afterwards, but Frey got caught in the streets when he was grabbing supplies, which is when he was killed, and you came across his corpse and decided to talk to it because reasons. Cid can't protect Riel alone. He hasn't even figured out why they're after her, but what he does know is that if he dies, they'll kill her. In exchange for finishing your training, Cid wants you to help him protect the girl, and possibly figure out what his master's last words meant. Since the Warrior of Light agrees to help guard the girl, Riel starts to talk to you, although she still doesn't say much. The Temple Knights claim she's an abomination who needs to die for her sins, but she doesn't even know what her sins are, and she nearly bursts into tears when you ask her about her parents. But she does trust Cid, and she wants you to watch his back so he doesn't end up like Frey. Since the introductions are out of the way, it's time to get back to the task at hand of figuring out why the Temple Knights want the girl dead. Cid had overheard some knights talking about some Vanu healers who can see their patient's ether and diagnose illnesses just by looking at you. Riel's not sick, but maybe the Vanu can tell you if something's strange about her ether that makes the knights want to kill her. You take a trip to Camp Cloudtop where you are forced to collect an offering before the Vanu will deal with you. Considering all the time I spent maxing out my reputation with them, you would think they'd let me skip this step, but nope. At least the dance they give you is worth it. With the offering in hand, you give it to the Vanu healer, who takes a look at Riel's ether, freaks out, and runs away. And of course, some Temple Knights show up to try to kill you. Cid recognizes some of them as members of a group of knights who don't answer to the Lord Commander, as if Emmerich would send knights to murder a child. The people probably wouldn't take too kindly to knights murdering a kid in the street, which would explain why they waited until you were out of the city to attack. So other than freaking out a Vanu and killing a few knights, the trip to Cloudtop was totally worthless. Back in Ishgard, the only thing Cid got from the Vanu healer before she ran off was that a great spirit lies in Riel. That little tidbit gives him the idea to take Riel to some people who are familiar with talking to spirits. That will be the conjurers of Gridania. Ironically enough, Frey had been skilled in white magic, but that took him months to learn, and it came really easily to Riel. Those particular skills tend to be genetic, so it's possible her ancestors were conjurers who did something that tainted their ether, and those traits are why the knights want her dead, but the only way to find out is to head to Gridania. Of course, the knights will be after you as soon as you leave the city, so you're going to need to be careful. Sure enough, a large amount of knights attack you only moments after you leave the city, and they are dead set on burying Riel in the snow. But for some reason they forgot that you've killed dragons and gods. A few dozen armored men really aren't that much of a challenge. Safely in Gridania, Brother Isumi, the Pajal leader of the Conjurers Guild who Cid mistakes for a child, is eager to see the girl. As a quick side note, the Pajal aren't a separate race, but they're more like a mutation in some hero children. They age slowly and have a natural connection to the forest and the elementals, and even though they have horns, they're not demons. Isumi checks her, and he believes that she radiates powers similar to someone who drank dragon blood, but otherwise she's totally healthy. The idea of Riel being accused of participating in the insane rituals of the heretics angers Cid, and he's even more angry that she didn't speak up for herself. However, at the inn in Gridania, she finally tells you some of her story. She had been locked in a windowless prison cell, and while no one claimed she had drank the blood, they did say it was better that she was locked away. Whether she drank dragon blood or not, the fact that her ether shares some Dravanian traits means she'll never be safe in Ishgard, so Cid decides that it may be a good idea to take her to see some Dravanians to determine if she really has ether that resembles theirs. Of course, Dravanians tend to eat people from Ishgard when they see them, since the last time they trusted Ishgardians they were betrayed, had their eyes stolen, and were murdered. However, since you've already made friends with some of the Dravanian leaders, you take them to see Vidofnir with no fear of her trying to chew on any of you. She sends you to take some flowers to a dragon who's dying, and she immediately smells the essence of her dead husband in Riel. His blood flows in her veins, but it's diluted, like she wasn't the one who drank his blood, which is why she hasn't been taken over by it. One of her parents must have done it. And the Temple Knights are well aware of this, which is why they will stop at nothing to kill her. Cid believes that if he could harness the Abyss, he'd have the power to protect her, but the dragon laughs at him, claiming that he understands less than the little creatures that live in the mists around Somal about what he seeks. Cid's eager to learn more since the dragon seems to know a bit about what he's trying to do, but she's tired of talking to you now, so it's back to Ishgard you go. Dragon blood or not, Cid gave his word that he'd protect Riel, and he plans on doing it no matter what. Which is a good thing because a priestess named Ystride, the one who's been sending the knights after Riel, shows up at the Forgotten Night. She tells you that it is the will of the goddess that the abomination be killed, and if you hand her over, the goddess may forgive you. Cid laughs in her face, and Ystride tries another approach. She challenges you all to a trial by combat. If you survive, she'll let Riel live. If you die, then we all know what she'll do to the girl. And if you refuse, she'll burn the whole inn to the ground and kill everyone inside. If you run away, she'll kill everyone who gives you shelter or even sells you a meal. The woman is insane, and Cid is more than willing to stab her now, but she wasn't stupid enough to come alone, and her men might start murdering the other patrons if you attack her, so both of you accept the challenge. Ystride goes to leave, but Riel calls out to her, revealing what you probably already guessed. Istrid is her mother. Cid is not happy that it took this long for Riel to let him know that her mother was the reason the knights were after her all along, which, considering how Frey died protecting her, that was something that she should have told them. Which he does have a point, but Riel is a child, and having your mother wanting you dead is probably not the easiest thing to talk about. Now that the truth is out, finally you find out the whole story. For generations, the members of Riel's family have given their lives to the church. They usually ended up with very high positions of power, and Istrid was headed in the same direction until her husband was accused of being a heretic. When she confronted him, he drank blood and finished the transformation he had been working on for decades. The Temple Knights killed him, and Istrid had their daughter locked away. His plan was actually a good way to destroy the church. Marry into a family with authority for generations, corrupt yourself with dragon blood slowly so no one notices, have a child who will eventually inherit all of that family's power and be born with dragon blood with no one ever knowing. Now, one of the very things they preach against would be their leader, and the fact that they couldn't tell the difference would invalidate all of their teachings. But he failed, and now his daughter is being hunted by the Temple Knights. Riel doesn't want either of you to participate in the trial because there's no way her mother will fight fair, but Cid has a plan. When he had mentioned learning to use the abyss to the dragon, it had said the tiny beings in the mist know a better way to harness true power. If they can teach you, then you should have the power to beat Istrid and her knights. There's only one group that fit the dragon's description. It's once again time to deal with the most annoying creatures in Eorzea, the Mughals. You head to the Churning Mist and chat with Magi, who has never heard of knights who focused on using the power of darkness. And honestly, he thinks it's a horrible way to live, but he does think he knows why the dragon sent you to him. Cid is not impressed with the Mughals, but Riel is even more fed up with this entire endeavor than he is. She's tired of Cid claiming that he's doing all of this for her benefit when the only thing he really cares about is the abyss. He's taken her halfway around the world looking for new ways to kill himself, then using her as an excuse. She wants to know why he's really doing all of this. He doesn't really have an answer, so naturally he starts yelling, mainly at you for just standing around and staring all the time without saying anything, which is kind of annoying. Seeing you all argue makes Magi start to understand the whole darkness thing. It reminds him of a legend of a Mughal named Mog who liked to dance, which doesn't sound like it has anything to do with the dark arts, but Magi claims that it does. He says that Cid's master was right when he told him to submit to the flame to harness the abyss. Cid just never knew what he meant. Fortunately, Magi will show you after you go and get him some palm work. While the two of you go out, Magi wants Riel to stay and talk to him. When you return with the palm word, he gives you another task, to kill some Tulahans, because Mughals like to pawn off their chores on other people. Afterwards, he wants you to meet him in Asa. You do the job, but when you and Cid meet up in Asa, armed Mughals show up claiming that while you were distracted, they kidnapped Riel. Since they had so much fun playing together, they decided to keep her forever, and with their concealing magic, you'll never be able to find her. Cid jumps straight into his usual way of dealing with things. He takes out his sword and starts attacking while shouting out some colorful threats about how he's going to rip their palms off and choke them with them. After thoroughly beating up the Mughals, all but one who fell asleep because Mughal, they ask Cid why does he even want her back since he doesn't seem to like having her around all that much. He says it's because he swore an oath, and that's what Dark Knights do, but another Mughal counters, claiming that flimsy reasons like that don't give you enough strength to protect anyone. If you really want to draw out your full power when fighting for someone, you have to actually care about them. Of course, they deliver the message in the form of a song because Mughal, but the message has some merits. And no, I'm not singing it. I'm trying to gain subscribers, not run you guys off. Now that the fighting's over, Magi shows up with Riel, who says that she knows the reason he and Frey helped her is because it's what their master would have done, and he thinks it will make him stronger, because the only thing he really cares about is killing Temple Knights. So he's not fighting for her, and Frey didn't die for her. They were only doing what they thought was best for themselves. Cid admits that everything he's done has been for his parents, his master, and himself. He apologizes for not being honest with her, and he swears that after the trial, whatever happens in the future will be her decision, which is all she's been asking for since the beginning. With this little escapade out of the way, you head back to Ishgard with Cid cursing about the Mughals half the way and telling you why he hates the Temple Knights so much for the rest of the trip. He was about Riel's age when his family came to Ishgard looking for a better life. When the Temple Knights who they had fought and let live came back, they said they would show them mercy by letting them pick the order they died in. Cid watched his parents get killed, but when it was his turn, a man in black armor killed the knights and took him under his wing and trained him to defend the weak and punish the wicked. Now he realizes he used that mantra to get revenge on the knights, and he mistreated Rielle in the process. But he's all she has at the moment, and he intends to defend her in this trial with his life. Istrid sent for all of you to meet her in the Western Highlands away from the eyes of the people, and proof that this certainly won't be a fair fight. But it doesn't matter. The three of you head out to face Rielle's mother. The woman came with a small army of knights, but with you and Cid fighting and Rielle healing, you cut them down until only Istrid is left. She can't understand why Cid fought so hard for the abomination, but in an act of mercy that you would have never expected to see from him, he offers to spare the woman if she leaves you alone. She refuses. She vows to hunt Rielle down wherever she goes until she finally kills the girl, because the gods demand it. Accepting that her mother will never leave her alone, she gives Cid the go-ahead to finish her off, something he has no problem doing. True to his word, he defers to Rielle to see what they do next, and she wants you all to go back to Ishgard together. Ironically enough, Cid realizes that the moment he let go of all of his rage and his desire for vengeance, he fully understood what his master had meant. He's learned how to unlock the power he wanted, and he's willing to use it to keep Rielle safe, if she wants him to stick around. She does, but only if he stops the silent Batman-style brooding and talks to her more, something he agrees to do by grunting. In the meantime, while you have dealt with her mother, there may be others who know of her bloodline and may come hunting for her. If they do, Cid will be ready, and if things get too tough, he'll just give you a call. This concludes the second part of the Dark Knight storyline. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next part of the story.